Hello and welcome back to another episode of Legal Talk. I am your hostess, Alina González-Dockery, attorney from Florida, concentrating in the areas of estate planning, probate, and family law. And I am thrilled to welcome back Abigale Stolfe, founder and owner of Jersey Coast Family Law, LLC, servicing families throughout New Jersey for 20 plus years in the areas of divorce, custody, and child support matters. Ms. Stolfe, I'm extremely thrilled and honored to have her back on the show because she is highly regarded in her field. She has received the Who's Who from Marquis in 2020, Premier Lawyers Lifetime Achievement Award in 2019, along with being named as a super lawyer, rising star, and top 10 lawyers of New Jersey. I am impressed by that, I will say. But most importantly, what I learned from the last time we spoke, Abigale, is that you have a true consideration for your client's needs, especially in tender moments such as family law. So welcome, 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 Abigale. Will you please say hello to your audience, actually?
Well, thank you. And thank you for inviting me back. And listen, I really enjoyed our conversation last time, and I'm sure we're going to have a great one again. I'm hopeful that people are taking something from these conversations and something that they can apply to themselves or to their real life situations.
Well, and that's what's so great about these opportunities that I have in interviewing attorneys such as yourself, because though we're from different states, there are some similarities, especially, with the laws and such. However, there are those trends like the last time we spoke about with like the time sharing with the co-parenting 50-50, things like that. But what I really find beneficial for our audience is it takes the teeth or the reputation of a divorce lawyer or family law matter as being in a highly litigious, aggressive, very mean-spirited procedure, where in fact we are dealing with families in their lives. And I know that's where your focus is trying to maintain what is best for the family as a whole, even though they may not be together. So stating that, I was just curious. I mean, I am going to ask you about, are you seeing any new trends coming down in New Jersey, especially with the legislative sessions have already, they're about to start next year. And I don't know if you guys are like, our legislature always seems to have something cooking.
There is always something on the horizon and something that we're kind of watching. Right now, what we're seeing a lot of is conversation about artificial intelligence and how it applies to our practice area. Not so much our law and how we interpret our law, but how we actually practice our field of law. There's some great moments in AI, and we can't ignore the fact that there's some components that are really helpful to navigate through or advance family law. They make some of our softwares easier. However, there is a real cautionary tale on relying upon AI in a family law matter, because I have said this for years. There's plenty of video all over the internet of me saying every case is unique. Every case is different, and AI is built based on historic usage. So your historic usage of AI, or what then builds the historic usage for that program, may not meet my need. And so the fear for me, particularly in talking to potential clients or even the people that be, right, the people that write the law or interpret the law, is to be really careful with this AI and how far we allow it to kind of seep into our world, because I have a real concern that people are going to start just assuming that what AI says is the law. And here's a great example. This happened today, and this is no joke. Today, I get an email from a client saying, is it true that I'm not entitled to alimony because I don't meet the factors and the 5%? And I said, 5%? I don't know what 5% is. I don't know what you're talking about. So And this is something that was, again, generated through AI. And that in New Jersey, that just doesn't apply. So I do caution people heavily, use it for reference, use it for confirmation, use it to help you to figure out which way to go, but don't use it to decide how your family is going to live the rest of your life.
Well, and I think that's so important, because we are seeing, I mean, it started with, Siri or, Alexa or whatever, give me this information, or even Googling. I mean, when you Google, and I tell this to my clients, when you Google, you got to realize the first things that pop up are advertisements, sponsored pages that want you to go there and do this. But also the myriad of information that's going into AI isn't based on your state alone. And we are dealing with look, if family law were cookie cutter, you and I would not be needed.
Right.
The judicial
That's
system
true.
would not be needed.
True.
But it's not, because we're not, even though Elon Musk is putting out those robots, we're not robotic. We are not a cookie cutter society, and each family has their own particular needs that need to be addressed. And that's why I always, even when, say a potential client or a lead calls me and they may not be able to afford myself, but I always say, please at least get some type of counsel and advice in this area, because it is something that is so uniquely situated for themselves. And I think that's one of the things. It's like you see, like the hot button is AI, artificial intelligence, how we can do this. And I'm sure you and I, but yeah, I'm sure you saw the same article, like those attorneys that used AI to write a brief to an appellate court without fact checking their references. I mean, it does get a little precarious, and uh, I'm gonna throw this out. So I'm sure you have dealt with pro se litigants, the litigants that do not have an attorney.
Yes.
So,
Plenty.
and as do I, and many of them will be using AI for almost as a substitute attorney in a way. I would really like for you to educate our audience in that, even if you are not using an attorney or you're in the pre-stages of selecting an attorney, how they can best deal with or navigate such, the judicial system when you're dealing with a family law matter. I mean, I always say it's best to have an attorney, but if you can't, what would you say to our audience?
So this is what, if you cannot hire a lawyer for financial reasons, and that should truly be the only reason why you choose not to hire a lawyer, because if you have the ability to hire a lawyer, you're going to save so much money in the long term. And I say that all the time because it's being penny wise today and pound foolish tomorrow, right? So, but if you are in a situation where you truly can't hire a lawyer, you can use AI to gather information. You can do your research on Google and gather information that way. What I would really recommend is that you use the internet specific to your state. Because I think what a lot of people do is they Google, what are the alimony laws? Well, my alimony laws in New Jersey may not match the alimony laws in Florida or New York or Pennsylvania or California. So gathering alimony laws isn't really going to help you. You want alimony laws specific to your state. This again is if you can't hire a lawyer. I have a case right now, it's in the appellate division. The other side is representing themselves. And we often had received briefs through the course of the case that were AI generated. And we spent a tremendous amount of time having to go back and to say why this case didn't apply and why that case was old law and why that case was no longer persuasive on the court. And it costs a lot of money to do that. And so one of the things you may think is, hey, I'm pro se or I'm self-represented. And I love these people who think they're really going to get the other side by making them waste their money on a lawyer. Well, in this particular case, my adversary who decided to do that and play this game ended up paying about 90% of my counsel fees. So please understand that just because you're self-represented does not mean that you're not going to pay a lawyer. You may be paying the lawyer for the other side because they're having to deal with giving correct interpretations of the law. So always be mindful in your decisions to be smart, just like you would in any other decision. I'm telling you right now, I would not try to install a water heater. I may want to save the money on the plumber, but I also know I need hot water. So like we need to, know where our money goes. And keep in mind that that is definitely where you're going to want to be very mindful of how it looks going forward.
Oh, absolutely. And it's an investment. You Lawyers such as yourself are experts in your field. You have dedicated not only many years of education to obtain the credentials and the degrees to get this, but also based on your experience, your knowledge of how the courts work. And then on top of that, add in the appellate side of this. You offer really a treasure trove of experience to be able to guide clients through the legal process. And I'm with you. I would much prefer having and everybody should at least be educated in some way about the law. And if you can't afford or obtain some type of, even if it's a legal services type of situation, it's always best to have an attorney because it's an interpretation. I mean, they say that old adage, only a fool represents itself. That goes to attorneys as well, because I assure you, I would hire an attorney rather than represent myself. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we're going to come back to Abigale and we're going to pick her brain some more with her expertise in the family law realm. Tune right back in. Hello and welcome back to Legal Talk, where I am speaking with Abigale Stolfe, founder of New Jersey Family Law law firm. And we started off with the issues of artificial intelligence and tech involved and how it's affecting, the participants of a family law matter. But, in thinking, so many people had this maybe misguided notion, I don't know if that's the proper way of saying it, that if you go to a lawyer, that the lawyer is it. They are the experts of everything. We are, we had the counseling hat, the coordinator hat, the financial expertise and such. How do you navigate with, a person of means who has assets and stuff in the realization of what it would take to be able to properly prepare their family law matter?
And that's a great question. And it actually dovetails nicely with the AI, because I think that one of the downfalls of AI, again, being a one-stop shop, is that it doesn't take into account the nuances and the depths of your own family. So when you're dealing in a family law matter, I work with a lot of clients who are of high net worth and may have some more complicated situations than maybe a standard single family with young children would have, because they're just starting out, right? So I suggest to everyone that you should have an expert in every corner, right? We don't want a one-stop shop, and I don't advocate to create a one-stop shop. There are times when it is appropriate to have a estate lawyer involved, or to have a real estate lawyer involved. We might need some financial advisors involved, or accountants to do cash flows and business valuations. And I'm going to give you a quick story right now. I have a matter where unfortunately one party has been diagnosed with a terminal illness, and they own a significant number of different assets and different types of assets. So we're not just talking about a single business that has a high value. It's multiple entities. In that case, I sat with them together and I said, listen, I can work with you on the divorce, but that's really not what you need. What you really need is someone to liaison you to the right people, because you, terminally ill person, need an estate lawyer and a trust lawyer and someone who could deal with that high wealth. And you, gentleman who's wanting to pass his estate, you need a tax lawyer and a business lawyer, as well as an estate planning lawyer. So in that particular case, I am acting as a liaison an advocate so that if they do have to go through the divorce process, if that's the proper outcome for them, then I'm there, but we're already in the know, right? I've been involved in all these meetings and we know what we have to do. So when someone calls me, I like to make sure in that initial meeting, I say, yeah, this is what I think you need from me, but this is what we need from someone else. And I would like to connect you to 2 or 3 people I know. I don't make single relationships. If I have a woman who doesn't often involve herself in the family finances, I'll say, here's a male financial advisor, here's a female financial advisor. You pick who you like to work with. But it's really important. Don't feel like you have to only work with one person. And in fact, if you are only working with one person, that should be evaluated, not to be evaluated.
And I agree, especially and when we talk about family law matters, I mean, right? I mean, we're really talking, it's a nicer way of saying divorce process. And I often find that you need specialists in different fields. It's not just the financial or the assets, but it's also a parenting coordinator if there's young children or assisting with that time sharing, realtors or other experts to be able to not only assist in that, maybe that mediation process, or but also if you are to go to trial and it's going to be a long litigation, you want all of those experts to be able to shore up your positioning. And one of the things that they have, it's been around for years, I will say that, but it hasn't really gained as much traction as of yet, is that collaborative divorce process here in Florida. I'm just curious if you have had any dealings with the collaborative divorce process, because it kind of flows into what we're talking about, having all of those experts readily available for the parties, if you will.
Yeah, so in Jersey, we do have the collaborative process. And because I don't practice in Florida, it might be the same system down there. But basically, when you engage a collaborative process, you sign on to mediation and you sign on to a plan where you're not going to litigation. You're not going to go to the courthouse. The judges aren't going to decide. And you're going to engage with people who can help you make the right decision for your family. So that might require a parent coordinator to help figure out time sharing with children. It might require a forensic evaluation for finances. It might require financial advisors to help build a plan for the non-titled spouse and the transfer of assets. In collaborative, what we see is a world of professionals coming together to help move a family forward. That's how I view collaborative practice, is getting all the right people for this family so that we can build a plan that we're looking out 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. We're looking out into college time and emancipation time, even when we're dealing with elementary school children. It's a long-term plan, but it doesn't have to be a long process. And I think a lot of people see a long-term plan as equaling a long process or a lot of money, and one doesn't necessarily go with the other.
No, and that's exactly how it is in Florida. And actually, I think we may have taken like New Jersey, New York, and stuff to formulate the collaborative process here. And one of the things I've always been most impressed is that it takes that litigiousness or the potential for vitriolic advocacy out of the picture and allows the spouses to come together and really look at, okay, this is everything, and it's everything's on the table, full disclosures, and then do what's best interest. Because one of the things, and we discussed this the last time, your divorce, a divorce may take a year, 2 years, may take less, may take 6 months. That's just one little X on the timeline of this family, but forever there is going to be connections, and because of the family ties that you have created and the bonds that you have, like with children and such. So I think that's so important. And I love that advice. It's like, go ahead, look to not just going to let's just say, don't go to Bob Jones, who's been your family accountant for 50 plus years, or, you know, say starting off with your dad or your parents and stuff, maybe opening it up to see the fresh eyes of an expert. And I'm sure you do have kind of like a, you know, your Rolodex, for those that might know what a Rolodex is, you know, full of your preferred people that you like to work with, especially on your cases. What's your advice in dealing with all of this, having all of these experts? Because sometimes that could be a little bit intimidating for us, an individual going through a divorce process. How do you soften that blow of going, okay, by the way, what you thought was, say, oh, we're worth $10 million. Oh no, in fact, you're not. Let's look at the realities of what this means and stuff. How do you walk a client through that type of conversation, maybe?
When I meet with a potential client, first and foremost, I ask them to not bring any values to the table. And I like to start my process with any person who's going to work with me at a clean slate. And I do that because I think that if you walk into a room with an expectation or an anticipation, or I know what's going to happen, you can be sorely disappointed when it does not come to fruition. Listen, you could also be super surprised when something else happens. So I like to start at a clean slate. But when I'm going through a process, whether it's mediation, collaboration, or litigation, I work in what I call the homework method. So I give my clients pieces of work to do at each stage. What that allows them to do is to have some realistic expectations of what they should expect back from our professional advisors, whether they are an expert who's doing an evaluation that might be joint, whether they're our own expert evaluator, or whether they're just someone who's working in the process as a facilitator, like a financial advisor. It allows them to have a real understanding of what they're getting back and why they're getting it back. I have a case right now where I've handed my client thousands of pages of credit card expenses. And I said, you can do it or I can do it, but all these need to be categorized because they need to know where they spent their money. I don't need to know where you spent your money. You need to know where you spent your money because you're the one who has to get on the witness stand and say, in a year, we spent X amount of dollars on vacation, right? I don't need to say it, you do. So I'm a big proponent of homework and deadlines, which I know sounds like it's, well, doesn't that minimize? No, it doesn't minimize because it allows people to become really in tune with their life. And I have found in 20 plus years that everyone diminishes because they, for some reason, they feel bad about saying, well, we go out every night to dinner because I don't want to cook, right? Listen, that's you, just say it. It's who you are. Own it, right? I mean, but your credit card's going to tell me you went out to dinner every night, so you might as well just own it at the first meeting. So
Yeah. And I love the fact that you say homework because I tell my clients all the time, okay, so after we meet, I'm going to give you homework. And this homework will be not only to get, like the disclosure, the mandatory disclosures and all that, but the best part is when I tell them, I'm like, okay, here's all your account information. You go through it. I think that is also a realization. And it's that diminishing, but I think it's also an embarrassment going, oh my God, we spend this much money on, McDonald's or, or high-end restaurants. Abigail, thank you again so much for joining us. And can you please tell our audience, how can they get in touch with Jersey Coast Family Law to set up their appointments?
So I ask everyone to take a look at our website, which is jerseycoastfamilylaw.com. It enables you to learn who we are, what we're all about, meet the players of my firm, and kind of get our philosophies, because our philosophies need to match your need. If we do match your need, there's a contact page. Contact link right there on the bottom. Or of course, you could always call us at 732-361-4718, which is, I'm a big call person, so I get it.
I am too. Thank you so much. I look forward to the next time I get to have you on the show. This is Legal Talk with Alina. I wish everybody a wonderful day, and we'll see you back in our next episode. Welcome back to Legal Talk with Alina, and I am honored to have our next guest, Ryan Kahn. Ryan is an accomplished entrepreneur, transformative leader with a unique background spanning law enforcement and business consulting. Ryan has had a distinguished career as a detective sergeant and SWAT team leader. Yes, I know that does sound so cool. And Ryan honed his skills in leadership, strategy, and team building through his expertise and experience with law enforcement. In transitioning to the business world, he quadrupled his revenue at Shelton Associates in just 3 years. Now, as the founder of CS Business Consulting, Ryan empowers companies nationwide to cultivate high-performing teams and influential leaders. A dedicated community servant and published author, Ryan brings his expertise and passion to every endeavor, driving success and positive change. And I know that I am thrilled and honored to have Ryan on the show to give the audience a lot of educational pieces, but it's always fascinating to talk to you, Ryan. So thank you again for coming on.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure, and I'm flattered to be back on your show.
Well, Ryan, you do have, the last time we spoke, I'm still in awe with just how your background and how you transition from law enforcement to this successful business consultant, accounting expert. And I know that there are so many people out there, especially now, we're seeing more entrepreneurs opening businesses, starting their endeavors more than ever. And having that strong business foundation is so key to success. What legal structures should new businesses consider when starting out on their fresh new endeavor?
That is a great question. It is actually one I get all the time because, as you know, we really help small and medium-sized businesses capture and plan their endeavors, but we also help people that are starting and launching from the ground. And one thing that I've done is, the diligence that I've had to put in place as an accounting firm owner, as a consulting firm owner with my history in law enforcement, is that communication is key, but documentation and clarity, setting clear boundaries and expectations is going to resolve so much potential future friction and conflict. So one of the things that I say is the legal structure needs to be determined before a piece of paper or a contract is ever drafted, and certainly before products or services are ever sold. And often we put the cart in front of the horse and we go out there and say, hey, I've got a niche, or I've come up with a product, or I realize that I can sell, and we sell, sell, sell. And then we come back to some type of attorney, some type of accountant or expert and say, hey, can you help fix this? And we don't want people to be in the situation where we're looking in the past saying, can you help fix this? So my number one legal structure up front is you need to somehow get incorporated. And articles of incorporation in a state don't have to be a formal incorporation. You need to exist and register as a business in your state and your local government. So whether that's a county or a city or a metropolitan government, you need to make sure that you have permits, licenses, a business name, and you are accountable both on insurance measures and things like that. So if you can start that structure, I actually kind of coach people through this, especially my young entrepreneurs program. I have something called the Freedom 15 that I like to reference. And the Freedom 15 is for all businesses, but largely when you're starting off the ground. And it has a little bit of tongue in cheek, and it goes very in depth some areas. But what I tell people on the step 4 is, after you figure out how, what, where you're going to sell, the methodology, the cost, all that stuff, is you have to know how to repeat your services, and then you have to go ahead and organize and register your business. So let me give you a case-by-case example in the state of Kentucky. If you're going to create a business here in Kentucky, you need to search and make sure if the business name you want is even legally available. The federal government does not care if your name is legally available or not in your state. If you go sign up for an EIN, that's the effectively social security number for a company, the EIN, then you're going to get that EIN issued to you, whether you like it or not, or whether that name is available. So I've seen a lot of people start their own businesses, get an EIN for some company name, and then that company name does not exist in their state. And now they have to, from step 1, pivot and try to come up with some type of change they were already not planning for. So research the state name first. In most states, you can reserve that for a couple of hours or even a couple of days. Then you register and get your EIN, your federal identification number, because you can use that in your state registration. So there's a ping pong effect here. Snatch your name, get your EIN, then go back and register your name with your state. If you don't exist legally, all of the other steps get really difficult. So that's step number one, is properly register yourself in your state.
And that's, that is so important because, of course, on the EIN, I have a question though.
Sure.
So, because I've run into this, where you'll have an entrepreneur and they will say that they decide, you know what, I want to start this business and I'm going to name it, I'm just going to use my name or a funny, just say, Smith, Linda Smith, LLC, or, Inc. And then say they get the EIN under the Linda Smith Inc. And then they realize, you know what, I really want to brand myself because I can expand, I can create this great business, and also for potential future sale or what have you, it's better to brand. And then they change their name formally with the state from Linda Smith Inc. to Bubbles Cakes Inc. Sorry, I can't, it's the first thing. So you have Bubbles Cake Inc. But their EIN number is still under the Linda Smith Inc. Is there a way to change it, or how do they deal with that there's no longer a nexus directly from the business name to the EIN?
Gotcha. So there's kind of a two-prong approach here. When you say someone starts off doing it by themselves, there's something called a sole proprietorship where you and your social security number are the business. So let's say Ryan Kahn goes and just starts mowing lawns on the side. And it turns out everybody in my neighborhood, and the next neighborhood, the next neighborhood wants me to mow their lawn to where I'm actually making some money and doing things. I'm reporting all of that money under Ryan Kahn's name on Ryan Kahn's social security number and ultimately on his tax filing. And there's a ton of liability to that. If I get to any noticeable income that I'm worried about my tax situation, I would make it Ryan Kahn LLC or Ryan Kahn Inc. and then register with the state. And several years later, I have a cool name. We go to Bubbles Cake in your example. You can do two things. You can register something called a DBA, that's doing business as, or there's actual federal forms you can fill out and say, hey, I want to keep my EIN, but change my legal name. So again, another real world example. Our accounting firm is called Shelton and Associates CPA. And at Shelton and Associates CPA, our legal status is from 28 years ago. Wayne founded the company called WMS CPA. That's his initials. But he rebranded back 2007, 2008 to Shelton Associates because he wanted to start taking on partners like me. And so he has a DBA registered through the state of Kentucky. And on all of our tax forms, it says WMS CPA, even though our sign, even though all of our filings and everything like that commonly say Shelton Associates. So that's the two-prong approach. You can change your name legally through a filing of a form, just like you would change your address or anything like that. The government has to accept it and approve it, and then you can operate that new EIN with that new branded name, or you can just get a DBA and cover yourself up and file your forms under your old name and brand yourself out into the world under the DBA.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So I'm so glad we went into that because I do see that a lot, and I'm like, and people will ask, and I'm not a business attorney, so I've always been curious. Then how does that go about it? So thank you so much. And then speaking of which, like Sheldon Associates, so, it was expanded to bring on partners and, or shareholders. What are the critical elements of a strong partnership or shareholder agreement for those that are wanting to expand their businesses?
Great question. So have everything in writing. Okay. So Wayne and I did this a little bit backwards, a little bit against our own advice because we are related. That's my father-in-law. So if things really go sour, well, Thanksgiving is going to be awkward, right? But what we did is we went ahead and jumped both feet in with taking me in as a partner, and we wrote the contracts kind of in those first couple of months. I don't recommend that to people. And even in family situations, you should have a clearly executed operating agreement and contract up front before you engage in any type of business endeavor. So I'm literally telling the audience, don't do what I did. Okay. And so in all of our future endeavors, Wayne and I now own, I own 8 businesses, 5 of them shared with Wayne. And I think Wayne owns 7 businesses, 5 of them shared with me. So we're serial entrepreneurs. We do this over and over, but only on that first one did we ever jump both feet in without doing it. So clarity is the number one thing you need, an operating agreement or a contract that is going to tell you how things are going to play out during the health of the business and also during the succession plan of the business, whether succession is by accident through health or death, or succession is by plan by saying, hey, we're ready to sell and get out. And there are a lot of things that you can do. You have to give like first option, first position, explain how stock is going to be sold or created, how the assets are going to be divided. And there's a lot of places people can get themselves in trouble. But again, clarity, and an attorney, we do not do this. We are not attorneys. An attorney needs to articulate this and sit down with both parties if there's 2 partners, or all 10 parties if there's 10 partners, and get clarity and get the position and come to a resolution before you ever kick off in the formal operations side of things.
I have to say, this actually segues back to, so prior to you, I had Abigail Stahl on as a guest. And we were talking about the importance that for lawyers, we're not a one-stop shop. We bring
Right.
in other experts. We have those people to assist our clients to move forward in their endeavors and whatever, whether it's proper estate planning and financial advisement or CPAs for tax purposes, things like that. So thank you. I mean, that was something that we have been kind of focusing or more, like stressing that it is important to realize that when you're dealing with a legal consulting group or a business consulting group, what have you, that, having experts that build a team around will better enable you to grow your business to a very prosperous or serial entrepreneurship. It gives you those wings to fly. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere, Ryan. I have some more questions for you. Tune right back in after this. Hello and welcome back. And we are speaking with Ryan Kahn, and he is providing his expertise to you, the audience, on not only proper business structures, but also something that isn't exciting, but could be a nerve-wracking as well endeavor, is when you have gotten to a point that you're bringing on more partners or selling your portion of this partnership. So we were talking off air, and you just said something that was phenomenal, and I wish I could probably summarize it appropriately, but I'm going to allow you to do it, Ryan. We were talking about what happens when you do bring in multiple partners. You're growing and you're growing. You have like, a business that's able to franchise or what have you, and you're building it out, not franchising like McDonald's or such. And say someone wants to retire and they're like, I want to sell.
Gotcha. So that is a wonderful consideration. And if you have a genuine tax advisor, a genuine legal advisor that wants to see the longevity of your business and assumes that it's going to succeed, they're going to be planning for succession from day one. See, all business owners have one thing in common, regardless of the industry or the style or the personal preferences, is that they're all going to have to exit their business one day, whether that's handing it off to the kids, selling it out for that big ticket retirement sale you're always hoping for, or if death gets involved, everyone exit their business in one way or another. That's the guarantee in life. So that has to be a plan from day one. And so if you get to the point where you're big and you're growing and you find another expert, like-minded person, high initiative person that you say, I can actually partner up with this person, not hire them as an employer or contractor, but partner up with them, that needs to be written from day one into that contract, into that operating agreement as, hey, when it's time to consider bringing on additional partners and making a stock sale. So we're going to, 2 partners are going to now take on a 3rd partner. Are you going to each sell a portion of your stock? So it's 33, 33, 33. Well, if so, the increase in the value of the company and the value of that stock is going to cause you to realize capital gains and therefore pay tax. So if you sell out your stock for $1 million, I can promise you're not going to put $1 million in your pocket. You're going to have to pay attorney's fees, taxes. If you sell that stock and there's any type of assets or depreciation or any of those tax planning advantages in there, you're going to have to maybe recapture some of those advantages that you gained, especially in an all-out sale. And there's 2 ways to sell. There's an asset sale where you sell everything out from underneath your business, and that EIN and that business name that you had goes down to 0, but still exists on itself. Or there's a stock sale where they actually purchase the stock of the company and they take control of everything, liabilities and assets and all. And so that's another thing that I tell people. Let's say you built a lawn mowing business, as my private example, from $5 Now it's time to get out, and they're going to pay you $5 million for your lawn mowing business. You are not taking $5 million home with you. I'm sorry. Again, you're going to have to pay taxes. In this case, depending on your state, you're probably going to pay somewhere between 30 and 50% in taxes. And in California, you'll probably pay 60,000 or more, or 60% or more.
Wow.
And yeah, it's almost highway robbery. You know, you work your entire lifetime. And then on top of that, let's say, for example, you have liabilities and loans and things like that. If you're making an asset sale, you're going to have to resolve your own liabilities. If you make a stock sale, then they assume your liabilities,
Okay.
but it will probably decrease the value of your company during that sale. So on a $5 million sale, do not hold me to this, but shooting from the hip, most people on a pretty clean company will take half of that, maybe 60% of that home with them and get to put it in the bank, invest, and hopefully live off that retirement. But it's much different than what people think. And here's just a little personal advice from me. A great man once told me, never take on a partner unless you have to take on a partner. So whether that's the private investor, workload, operations, the best thing to do is you control and you own the baby that you built, unless somebody is so like-minded or the need is so great, then take on that partner with full clarity of an established, articulated contract.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because I even think like to my father. I mean, he has, I have a 92-year-old father. He is brilliant, engineer by trade or education, but he created, along with two other partners, a very lucrative, large international based corporation, which he has long since sold off, and he can't stay retired, so he started another business with partners. But that's something that actually he ran into because his partners, I mean, there were three guys that two of them were ready to retire. He did not, he still doesn't want to retire at 92, because he says that keeps him young. Well, that was one of the issues they were running into was, do you buy out that partner? How's the valuation of the of his portion of his share of the corporation? But the other thing that he ran into was then two of the partners who, outvoted him, basically said, no, we want to sell. And that's important to realize that if this is supposed to be, especially in most businesses, you think you're going to start a legacy corporation, a legacy company where you will, you envision your family taking on and continuing to grow and build this baby, as you put it. So it will continue to go on for years and years and years. I love to talk about like Publix, for instance. It started in Lakeland as a little grocery store, and it's growing. Actually, I think they're coming into your state soon if they haven't already. So I find that interesting. And then when you're dealing with these mergers and, or acquiring another company. So let's say for like my father, when he had his company, let's just call it, JG company, he and his partners wanted to say to acquire another similar like company. When you had that situation, what are you looking at as an expert when advising these clients going, okay, you want to merge this company or you want to acquire this company into your existing corporation? What are the pitfalls that you need to be aware of so you're not getting, sorry, I'm going to do a boxing. I don't know why I always go with sports with you, a sucker punch, like, oh God, I wasn't expecting this.
Gotcha. No, I like sports analogies, so go for it. So first of all, kudos to him for reaching that success, still wanting to work at 92 years. He's got the bug. He's truly an entrepreneur, and he'll never sit still. I'm sure of it. The mergers and acquisitions, we have personally done really just two acquisitions, one super small and the other one small. And the reason we did them was because they were clean and quick and simple.
Okay.
I'm not a huge fan of big mergers and acquisitions, but they definitely happen. They're a definite way to expand your business. And this is Ryan on the personal side, is because my other aspect is teaching teams how to work better, leaders how to lead better, making sure that workplace culture sets and is able to have everyone rallied around the vision and move the vision forward. So aside from all the legal stuff, which I'll circle back to, and all the tax stuff I'll circle back to, one of the important things is that your cultures have to fit. So a lot of people look at this giant, amazing bandwidth increase, brand increase. We can make this acquisition. We can merge with the big boys and the big girls, and we can do this wonderful thing. And they don't think about the operations of how we're going to make this function, how we're going to mesh all of the team members, all of the resources. A lot of times you're in the very similar industries, you're merging, but you have completely different softwares and workflow processes and things like that. Whose software are you going to pick? Whose workflow are you going to pick? You have two team leaders. Who's going to lead the team, right? And are you going to cut people? Are you going to hire more people? How are you going to do that? So that's a huge part for me that I think needs to be a major part of the conversation up front. On the more tax and legal side, and again, I'm going to try to dance away from the legal stuff, but regulatory stuff is really big, right? If you're doing some big time mergers and acquisitions, you're gonna have to start worrying about like antitrust laws and like regulatory body approval and things like that. If especially when you get into like public companies and stuff like that, my goodness, you're talking about a whole nother realm. But on the smaller side of things, you just want clean legalities. One of the things that was important for us is we paid for the smaller merger. We just paid all of it up front. We just basically wrote a check. On the slightly larger one, we had contingencies. We said, you're going to get this much money. You're going to get 50% up front for the sale. I said, but the rest of it will come off of a guaranteed price, which was good but nominal, but you're going to stay around for 2 tax seasons to help make sure that we carry the client relationships and get the value out of the book of business, because we bought a book of business, right? We bought the assets out. We did not do an acquisition of a full merger. So we brought everything in. He had a couple employees, big book of business, and we attacked that from the beginning. And in the contract wrote that you're going to help us this far down the line in order to get it. And if we get these metrics, these key indicators, then you're going to have these raises and that payout. So he was highly motivated, didn't have to do much work other than massage some relationships, make some emails and some phone calls. And he didn't have to do the operational work, which was good for him. So some of the employee and labor issues are going to be pretty big too. You're probably going to be merging at least across counties and cities and probably state lines. So you're going to have, labor issues. You're going to have new payroll issues. You're going to have to deal with fringe benefits offered to various employees at various places. Who's going to execute the payroll and the accounting, and who's going to sit here? If you have fringe benefits to one set of employees, not the other, well, that's called exclusionary rules, and you're going to get in trouble with that. You have to offer it to everybody or nobody with very few exceptions in the realm. Then you have like liabilities and litigations that may be hitting in the background. So you're going to have to do all kinds of disclosures. You're going to have to do all kinds of due diligence paperwork. There's a lot to consider right here. So those are more of the legal challenges. And then on the tax side, I'm looking for outstanding balances. I'm not going to want just 2 years tax returns. I'm going to go 5 years deep. I'm going to go back to the clawback periods that the IRS can claw back for you. And I'm going to examine your books, examine your tax return, and we're going to seek out any liabilities that may be out there, outstanding debts, balance sheets that just aren't looking right. And we're going to examine these things for you to make sure that you are merging or acquiring something that is clean or as clean as possible. And we want to have no surprises. We want to have an anti-surprise merger, anti-surprise acquisition. And there's a legal realm and an accounting realm to make sure you're both covered. So get an expert that can help you with that.
And speaking of experts, obviously, I think I'm hopeful that the audience is getting as much knowledge as I am from you educating. Ryan, you are the expert, and I want to make sure your audience knows exactly how to get a hold of you at CS Business Consulting and or Shelton and Associates CPA. How is the best way for potential entrepreneurial clients to contact you?
So on purpose, we share a phone number, 270-442-6688. And you just say, I want to talk about accounting, or I want to talk about leadership and teamwork. And you can go to either website, SheltonAssociatesCPA.com or csbizcon.com, which is the one on the screen. You can get a hold of us from there. There's automatic portals that'll bring you into everything, but we would love to talk to you. And you can go to one of the websites, or you can call that phone number, and we'll get the path started and help you in your situation as well.
Well, Ryan, again, thank you so much. I mean, honestly, I can't wait to watch this so I can take more notes. You are truly, a gracious guest and an expert in your field, and I appreciate it, and I wish you all the best. Until next time I get you on the show.
Sounds like a plan.
And I am Alina González-Dockery, your hostess, wishing you a good day, and I will see you next time on Legal Talk with Alina.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.